Wild River by Rodman Philbrick. Day 2. Chapter 4. Gone, gone, gone. I jam my baseball cap on my head and stumble out of my tent into the crazy dark, scared to death because I don't know what's happening or why the adults are so frightened. Instantly, the rain drenches through my clothes right to my skin. The dam has failed! Sky screams. Flood! Flood! Get to higher ground, the cliffs! All I can see are shapes moving, so I follow them, my heart pounding like an insane drum. Out of the darkness, somebody grabs my hand. Somebody strong. Sky shouts, Got you, son! Climb, boy, climb! Quick as you can, flood is coming! He lifts me up, shoves me against the cliff, and keeps me there until I find a foothold on the slippery rock. Some sort of instinct must be taking over, because without really knowing how, I'm scrambling up the cliff. Sky keeps shoving me from behind, pushing to lift me higher, guiding me to the footholds. I keep climbing, clinging like a magnet to the sandstone and using my fingertips to grip to find the next handhold, because for sure I can't see. When I get as high as he can reach, Sky stops pushing and shouts for Tony. I know that others are scrambling up the cliff. Kids, I think. I know, but I can't be sure. Panic is making me dizzy, and I'm terrified of falling because the thunderous roar has turned into something else. Something far more terrifying. A continuous explosion that drowns out all our screaming. My hands find a ledge, and I pull myself over. There's room enough to stand up, but I stay flat, afraid of losing my balance. Looking over the edge, blinking against the rain, I see dark shapes getting closer. Kids being shoved up to the ledge by the adults below. Tony makes it, his eyes bugging out with fear. I reach over, grab an outstretched hand, and drag Mia up onto the ledge. She's shouting something, but I can't hear her. All I can hear is the roar coming down the ravine, closer and closer. Rushing water, yes, but other sounds. Snapping and breaking and pounding, loud enough to shake the ground and the cliff itself. Deke is shoved up and climbs right over me, finding a place on the ledge. Right about then, a strange thing happens. Clouds roll away, revealing the moon, and suddenly I can make out Amani just below me, and Cindy Beacon shoving her up the cliff onto the ledge. Cindy with a look on her face so determined and so terrified that it almost stops my heart. She knows she's going to die. She knows, but she's still doing her best to save Amani. It makes me want to reach down and touch her hand and say thank you, but I never get the chance. The shrieking roar gets louder and louder, and then it comes around the last bend in the river, exploding into the moonlight, and an enormous wave of broken trees and rolling boulders surges right up to the lip of the ledge, pounding at the cliff, threatening to snatch us away. I close my eyes, expecting to die. 1,000,000 years go by, several very long minutes for sure. Somehow, I'm still here, clinging to the ledge, and the roar is gradually subsiding. I sneak a peek over the ledge. The flood is at least 10 feet below us now and dropping. Cindy Beacon is nowhere to be seen. She's gone. They're both gone, Sky and Cindy. We're alone. Chapter 5. What about us? Hard to tell when the sun comes up, because it never stops raining. Cool, constant rain from clouds so low they seem just above the trees. In the pale gray light, I make out 5 of us perched on the ledge. Me, Deke, Tony, Mia, and Amani. All of us drenched and miserable. We shouldn't even be on this freaking river, Deke complains. The coaches were idiots. Mia looks like she'd like to shove him off the ledge, even though he's twice her size. Shut up, Deke! They saved our lives and now they're dead! It's their own fault. Deke folds his arms, defiant. He's the only one not shivering, like he has his own furnace of anger keeping him warm. They change rivers and never let anybody know. That's like super against the rules. Be quiet and let me think, Mia says fiercely. We have to find a way off this ledge or we'll be dead too. Maybe you, Deke says, but I'll be just fine. Can we just stop fighting? I suggest. I think Mia's right. We could die of exposure. We need to get out of the rain, warm up somehow. Mia stands up, leans against the sandstone cliff to keep her balance. It's not that. She points down at the inside of the ledge. It's that. See that crack? An hour ago it was barely wider than my thumb. I think the flood weakened the wall, and if that crack gets any wider, this ledge will fall off the cliff. Suddenly, Deke looks as scared as the rest of us, but not so scared he doesn't have an idea. He cranes his head, studying the cliff above. Only way is up, he says. Tony, give me a boost. Goofy, funny Tony had been trying to make friends with Deke since we first met at the airport, so he's eager to help, placing his fingers together and giving Deke a boost up to a ledge so narrow he has to turn his feet sideways. Maybe 5 inches of sandstone, barely enough for a foothold. Scary, but Deke makes it look easy, sliding along and gradually working his way upward until 10 feet above he pulls himself up and over the cliff. Hey, what about us? His sneering face appears over the edge. Better get climbing, you losers. Didn't you hear what Miss Know-It-All said? Your little world is about to end. He's not wrong. The crack in the ledge is getting bigger, no doubt about it. Chapter 6. The Next Thing. It's tricky getting all of us up to the top of the ravine one by one. We have no choice but to pitch in and help each other. Even Deke does his part, using his strength to pull us over. Of course, he keeps running his mouth and making fun of whoever happens to be in his sights. Amani, what kind of name is that? You an illegal? Is that why you don't have much to say? She shakes her head, disgusted. Deke has a thing about names. Apparently, because he makes fun of mine too. Daniel the Spaniel, all bark and no bite, he says, pulling me over the edge. Leave him alone, Mia says. He was the last one up. That took courage. Who made you the boss? He says with a sneer. Yeah, who? Tony chimes in. I'm going to find shelter, Mia announces firmly. Follow or not, your choice. She hefts the backpack and marches along a path a few yards back from the edge of the cliff. Sky had tossed the backpack up to her on the ledge. It was one of the last things he did. I follow, wondering what's in the pack. Clothing? Food? If it's something good, will she share? I'm starving. That's my excuse for having such selfish thoughts. Looking over the cliff edge gives me a bird's eye view of the flood destruction. The riverbed, so clear and perfect on our raft trip, is piled high with broken trees and boulders, so we can't raft our way out of this even if we had a raft, which we don't. Our camping area lies buried under 20 feet of wreckage. The only gear that survived is the backpack Sky handed up to Mia. The pack that maybe has emergency rations. I'm following that as much as I'm following her. So is Amani, a few yards behind me on the path. The next thing makes me forget all about food. A very loud crack that sounds like an echoing rifle shot, only deeper, and a weird shifting under my feet. Run! I scream. Mia has already veered from the path and is sprinting into the trees away from the cliff. We've barely enough time to catch our breath, and once again we're running for our lives. It's not the ledge, just the ledge that was damaged by the flood. A whole massive section of the sandstone cliff is collapsing, and if we can't get away, can't get deep enough into the woods, we'll plummet into the wreckage of the river below. Run! Chapter 7. Staying alive. I'm running so fast it feels like I'm flying, my feet barely touching the ground. Or maybe that's the ground dropping out from under me, which is so terrifying a thought I run even faster, desperate to get ahead of the sickening rumble of the cliff falling away. Raindrops blurring my glasses, flashes of trees and leaves, and Mia a few yards ahead of me, racing for her life, pack bobbing higher than her head. I don't dare look back to see if the others are following us away from the ravine edge. Looking back might make me stop, and stopping means dying. And I'm so scared, I can't even think about anything but staying alive. Don't die, don't die, don't die. The words on loop screaming in my brain. The rumble of the collapsing cliff fades away. In the silence that follows, all I can hear is my heart pounding. I made it. I'm alive. And then With my glasses blurred, I run straight into a tree. Wham! Flat on my back. Behind me, Deke hoots and laughs. Oh, dude, that was perfect. Like a cartoon, the way you bounced backward. Not, are you okay? Or offering to help me up. I roll over, panting and wheezing and spitting out rainwater. Can't even respond to the big jerk because the breath has not been knocked out of me. I try to dry my glasses, but it's hopeless. Doesn't matter. We're lucky to be alive, all 5 of us. Mia calls out, "Over here! Give me a hand, you guys!" Staggering to my feet, I follow her voice. There she is, struggling with a blue tarp taken from the pack. She never quits, Mia. Always thinking ahead, doing what needs to be done. She tosses me a bundle of rope. "You got a jackknife, right? Cut off some lengths, and we'll tie this to the tree branches. I swear if I don't get out of this stupid rain, I'm going to melt." Luckily, the jackknife is buried deep in my pocket, a present from my dad, who said it might come in handy. If only he knew. I saw a way cutting the ropes into shorter lengths. Amani appears and silently takes some of the cut rope. With shaky hands, we tie one side of the blue tarp to some branches, up as high as we can reach. The other side we fasten to a couple of saplings about waist high. The tarp slanting down so the rain runs off. We duck under the tarp, and Mia is grinning at us, me and Amani. "We've got a roof over our heads," she announces. Very cool. That was smart. I dry my glasses as best as I can and peer out from the shelter. "Hey, Deke, Tony, over here." Mia snorts. "Who says they're invited?" "Sky Hansen," I remind her. "All for one and one for all." "I guess," she says grudgingly. Deke ducks under the tarp and joins us, followed eagerly by Tony, who immediately rubs his hands together and wants to know what's for breakfast. Deke picks up on that and demands to know what's in the backpack. "I'll bet there's trail mix. Here, let me look." Mia snatches it out of his reach. "I'll share whatever there is, but it's my responsibility, okay?" "Not okay. Are you serious? But go ahead and check it out. We're starving." She carefully reopens the chunky backpack and rummages around. "Any bacon?" Tony asks, making it a joke for Deke's approval. Mia ignores him. "There's a lot of useful stuff stowed in the pack: a flashlight, a compass, a fire starter kit, a large clasp knife, 6 metal cups for collecting and drinking rainwater, a space blanket, a first aid kit, and a lightweight 1-quart pan for boiling water." Mia hands each of us a cup. "See that lanyard? Clip it to your belt so you don't lose it." "No food? Come on!" Mia gives us a sly grin and lifts a large, obviously heavy package out of the backpack. "Not bacon," she says. "Freeze-dried meals. 6 servings per package." "Let me see that," Deke demands, reaching out. Mia shakes her head and is about to say something when the sky cracks open. Chapter 8. One word. The lightning must have struck close by. A blinding flash and a blast of thunder so loud, so awesomely huge that it feels like a punch to the chest. A reminder that even though I've been scared for hours, it can always get worse. That just because we've survived a massive flood and a collapsing cliff doesn't mean we can't get struck by lightning. One thing I've learned long before this trip is that something bad can happen at any moment, and you never know what it might be. As if to prove me right, a gust of wind rips the blue tarp from the saplings and sets it flapping like some crazy bird. We're instantly drenched. The rain is coming down so hard I can barely see. But I'm pretty sure Mia is shoving stuff into the backpack as she shouts, "Grab the ropes! Grab the ropes!" Easier said than done. The ropes are whipping around like skinny white snakes, but I finally manage to keep hold of one and Deke has the other. He's laughing like he thinks this is fun. Not me. I feel like we're fighting for our lives, and there's nothing funny about that. But whatever, between us, we get that tarp under control. And when the wind stops gusting, we tie the tarp to the saplings, and just like that, we have shelter again. "That was excellent," Mia says to me and Deke. "Teamwork." "Yeah, right," Deke says dismissively. "What about the food? I'm starving." "First things first," Mia says. "We need to make a fire so we can boil water." "Why can't we just eat it out of the package?" Tony wants to know. "Because you can't. I read the instructions, okay? We have to add 2 cups of boiling water to the package, let it sit for 10 minutes, and then we'll have rice and beans with chicken. Amani stands up. The rain is tapering off. I'll look for dry leaves and firewood. It's kind of shocking because those are her first words since the flood. Mia smiles her approval. You should all help Imani, she suggests. I'll check out the fire starting kit. Deke snorts. Who made you boss? I mean, seriously, what makes you think you can tell me what to do? I'm not telling, I'm asking. Don't help if you don't want to. I'm not helping either, Tony chimes in. You're right on, Deke. Totally. Who made her boss? Nobody, that's who. I stand up. This is stupid. I'm cold and I'm hungry. We all are. After we've had a hot meal, we can argue about who's in charge. At first, it's just me helping Amani search for dry firewood, but eventually Deke and Tony pitch in. And still, it takes us hours because everything is soaking wet, even though the rain has stopped for the time being. Eventually, Amani comes up with the idea of looking under overhanging rocks, which sounds goofy, but it works because the ground under some of the rocks is still dry, and we're able to gather pine needles and leaves and small twigs. It takes forever before we have enough to try starting a fire. The hot meal that should have been breakfast or lunch is going to be supper, if we're lucky. When we finally have enough kindling and wood, Mia opens the tin fire starter kit. It contains a box of waterproof matches, a half dozen self-igniting fire starter cubes, and a flint for striking sparks when the other stuff runs out. Mia asks which method we should use. Deke responds by grabbing the matches. 5 minutes later, we have a small but warming fire and 2 cups of rainwater boiling in the pan. Waiting 10 minutes for the freeze-dried meal to soak up the boiling water seems to take forever. My stomach is growling so loud it sounds like I swallowed a puppy. We don't have any plates, so we have to take turns spooning the rice, beans, and chicken chunks out of the pan. In the normal world, I'd never share a spoon, but this is so far from normal that nobody complains. We're too busy wolfing down the food, which tastes delicious, by the way, even if it's not really enough to make us feel full. Break out another package, Deke says, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. I'm just getting warmed up. No, says Mia, hugging the zipped up pack. We need to ration. Are you insane? Give me that pack, you little jerk, or else. No! No. One word. That's all it took to start a war. Chapter 9. Freeze-dried maggots. In case I forgot to mention, Deke towers over Mia. She's on the small side and he's taller than any of us, and anger seems to make him even bigger. You know what you are, he says, jabbing his finger in her direction. A bossy little know-it-all. Every class has a loser like you, but this isn't school. You can't run to the teacher or complain to the principal. You're not in charge of anything. You're not in charge of me, and for sure you're not in charge of the food. If Mia is scared, she doesn't show it. Why is it that when boys are in charge, they're heroes, but when a girl steps up, she's bossy? Because you are, Tony says, taunting. If Mia had laser beams for eyes, he'd be a puff of smoke. Whatever, she says. Here's the deal. There are only 12 freeze-dried packets, okay? 11 now that we've eaten one. We don't know how long it will take for them to find us. We have to ration 1 meal a day. Deke waves angrily at the cloud-blackened sky. Soon as this blows over, they'll send up helicopters. By this time tomorrow, we'll be heading home. I hope so, I really do. But we can't be sure about that. They don't even know what river we're rafting, remember? This one is 100 miles from where they thought we were going. Not that far. No way. When we found the first river was dry, we drove for almost 2 hours, remember? Just shut up. They'll find us. Now hand it over. Coach Sky gave me the backpack. It was the last thing he did. He could have given it to you, but he gave it to me. So I'm responsible. Deke clenches his fists. Is he going to hit Mia? If he does, I'll have to stop him, or try my best. But a moment later, he starts chuckling, like everything he just said was meant to be a joke. You know what? I think I lost my appetite. You keep your stupid freeze-dried food. What flavor is it? Garbage pail, toilet bowl. That's disgusting, Amani says. How come boys always have to be disgusting? Because it's fun. Tony's gleeful. That wasn't rice, it was freeze-dried maggots. Even Mia laughs at that. Because it's true, maggots do look a bit like rice. Anyhow, all the bad jokes relieve the tension, but there's something in Deke's eyes that makes me worry it isn't over. No way is he going to back down or let anyone boss him around. He's still trouble, I'm sure of it. That's how we spend the first night after the flood. 5 of us jammed together under the tarp trying to stay dry. We take turns using the space blanket because our little fire has gone out, and none of us want to risk searching for dry kindling in the dark. Not with the ravine edge looming. The blanket helps a little, but it isn't really necessary. It's not actually cold, it's just damp and miserable. The choice is to sleep lying on the wet ground or sitting up. I choose sitting up with my back against the tree the tarp is tied to. I keep nodding off, but not deep enough to be satisfying restful sleep. It doesn't help that Tony is snoring like an outboard motor. My brain is jagged with stuff to worry about. Things back home mostly, which is weird because here we are, lost in the wilderness without enough stuff to eat and no idea how to get back to civilization. But I can't help worrying about my dad, who has a mental illness, bipolar disorder. Sometimes he gets these wild thoughts, like he has an idea that's going to change the world and he doesn't sleep for days. Then he crashes and just lies in bed and feels sad and depressed. Mostly his medication keeps him on the level, but not always. I hope him being missing doesn't freak him out or trigger an episode, which makes it all the more important for us to find a way out of this situation so I can let my family know I'm okay. Deke may have a plan to make himself boss, but I've got a plan too. Not to be the leader. I couldn't care less about that. A plan to stay alive. A plan to rescue ourselves. That is the end of chapter 9 and the end of day 2.